When the world was young and the seas whispered secrets only the wind could hear, there was a rabbit who loved the Isle of Man very much. Now, this was no ordinary rabbit, mind you. He had long ears that caught every murmur of the breeze, and soft, gentle paws that had known every path, from the heather-touched hills to the stony shores. But on this particular day, Rabbit stood on the deck of the great Manxman, his paws resting on the railing, as the isle slowly faded from view. The warm summer sun was sinking low in the sky, spilling gold and orange upon the water, as if the sea herself was reaching out to hold him just a little longer. Now, you must understand that Rabbit and the sea were very old friends. You see, the sea had been there long before Rabbit's paws had ever touched the soil of the isle, and she knew every ripple and rock, every secret and shadow. So, when Rabbit gazed out over the water, the sea knew, just as she always did, that it was time for one of their farewells. "Well, well, well, Rabbit," came the soft, swirling voice of the sea. "So you're leaving me again, are you?" Rabbit's ears twitched at the sound of her voice, for it was as familiar to him as the rustling of leaves in the glen. "I'm afraid so, Sea," he replied, his whiskers trembling ever so slightly. "The summer is ending, and it's time for me to wander again. But you know how it is. I'll be back." Now, the sea, being a wise old soul, didn't fret or fuss, for she knew this was the way of things. Instead, she chuckled, a sound like the gentle roll of waves against the shore, and said, "Oh, Rabbit, you always say that. But every time you leave I wonder. Perhaps this time you'll stay away a little longer. Perhaps you'll find something that makes your heart forget the Isle of Man." At this, Rabbit gave a small, knowing smile. He looked out over the water, where the last traces of the island were disappearing beneath the horizon, and said, "Dear sea, you've always been one for teasing. But you know as well as I do, there's no place like the isle." And then, as all things in stories of long ago, something very curious happened. The wind, who had been lazily drifting about the deck, decided to join in. For wind, you see, was never one to stay silent for too long, and he loved a good chat. "Ah, Rabbit!" the wind cried, swooping down and swirling playfully around his ears. "Leaving again, I see. But tell me, what will you do without the heather under your feet and the oak trees to whisper their stories? Wherever will you go where the blackberries don't scratch your paws just so?" Rabbit, who had known the wind's playful ways for many, many years, laughed and shook his head. "You're as mischievous as ever, Wind. But you know I take the stories with me. Every bramble, every bluebell, they live right here." And Rabbit tapped his heart with his paw. "But I will miss the fairies," he added, "and their little songs in the glen." "Yes, yes," the wind sighed, "the fairies will miss you too. I've heard them say it often enough. Where's Rabbit gone? They ask me when you're away, but they always know you'll come back." The sea, who had been listening quietly, rolled a little closer, her voice soft now. "And when you return, the bluebells will be waiting, the gorse will bloom, and the bramble will twist in the ways only you know how to follow. But for now, dear Rabbit, go, wander as you must." Rabbit's heart gave a small, quiet thump. He looked out at the fading light, the summer warmth slipping away with each passing minute. "Thank you, old friends," he whispered, his voice barely louder than the gentle breeze. "You're right, I will always come back." And with that, the ship sailed on, the Isle of Man now no more than a memory on the horizon. But Rabbit carried its stories with him, tucked safely in his heart like wildflowers pressed between the pages of a well-loved book. And as he left, the sea whispered one last thing, something only the wind heard and something that only the fairies might have understood. Farewell for now, Rabbit, but never goodbye. And so this is how Rabbit came to know that no matter how far he roamed, the Isle of Man, with its heathered hills, its whispering oak trees, and its fairy blessed bluebells, would always be there, waiting patiently for his return. And so, dear friend, until we meet again, may your days be filled with gentle breezes, the whispers of kind souls, and the warmth of stories carried close to your heart. Remember, the paths you walk are never truly far from home, for every goodbye holds the promise of return. Until next time, God bless.